How's it, guys? Welcome to Bandwidth Blog Live. Today we are talking about the Technomancer in my review. My name is Edward Love.
I'm Brian Smith.
And thanks for listening.
So Edward, let's start right at the beginning. What is the Technomancer and what does it arrive promising?
Brian, it arrives promising a big world set on Mars. It's the spiritual successor to a game called Mars Warlogs, which was released a couple of years ago to pretty muted acclaim.
Right, so what elements from other RPGs does the Technomancer bring to the table?
I mean, as I mentioned in my written review, there's definitely a bit of The Witcher and a real strong sense of Mass Effect as well. There's the idea that, you need to discover this world and, you're sort of charting uncharted territory. Although the disappointing fact is that it doesn't quite get that right. There isn't the same sense of wonder and the same sense of discovery that there is in the good Mass Effect series.
When I think of the Technomancer based on your written review, I get shades of Mass Effect as well as Red Faction, a series of games which was last released under the guise of Red Faction Armageddon. Does this take any inspiration from that?
Well, Brian, I mean, they're both set on Mars, so obviously there's the parallel there. I mean, one of the things that Technomancer doesn't do well is it doesn't give you enough of the planet to actually explore. So, it's quite frustrating. You sort of walk to a new level and you look behind you and you can sort of see the window dressing behind you, or the skybox as they call it, where you can see sort of the image of Mars, the sort of iconic red dunes, but they don't actually let you go outside and experience it. So the whole game is sort of spent in these indoor environments, which they've clearly spent a lot of time mapping out and putting together, and that's great. But there's no real sense that you're actually on Mars.
Well, for someone who hasn't played it before, namely myself, can you give us a brief synopsis of the story? I'd like to know what I could expect if I were going to buy this.
The story's actually quite good, Brian. You are Zachariah Mancer, and you're a Technomancer. Now, for some reason in this society, your surname is a part of what your job description is. So Zach is this sort of Jedi in training who, at the beginning of the game, earns his stripes. And he joins this sort of elite group of slightly mutant-esque soldiers, basically, and they're working for an organization on a planet called Ophir. And basically, long story short, there's a sort of government intrigue and some nefarious things going on. So it's kind of a little bit cliched in the sense that it's double crossing people and that sort of thing is going on. But there's a lot of meat to the story. So if you really sort of want to get invested in it, then there's a lot to chew on. The problem with the story is that the characters are so sort of wooden that you find yourself sort of just skipping entire cutscenes because you can't be bothered to watch it.
Minus that last little bit, it actually reminds me somewhat of Deus Ex in the way you describe it.
Deus Ex is a pretty good comparison actually, because Technomancer also lets you adopt stealth if you like, and it also lets you be gung-ho if you like. There aren't really guns per se. Most of the game is melee combat. But there is one stance you can adopt where you get a gun as well. I think the whole game is really let down by not only the world building, but the presentation in some ways. I mean, it's hard to be too negative because this is clearly a game that's been made on a bit of a budget, and you can't expect sort of uncharted levels of quality. But at the same time, if you're trying to create something that's really sort of AAA and sort of, almost like a mini-series in terms of how complex the story is, then you've got to also at the same time expect certain levels of presentation quality.
So taking these forward, is the combat in the game you've described different styles, and that almost in a sense reminds me of The Witcher based on how you have to configure your playstyle to face certain enemies. And two questions on that: is the combat system and inventory management Witcher worthy, or do they fall short in the same way?
The inventory management's really cool, so you can sort of do everything in real time, and they've done a good job of not making you have to deal with too much stuff. It's all quite streamlined. In terms of combat, it's hard to know how to feel actually. On the one hand, it's quite good, quite addictive, quite satisfying. On the other hand, it's really quite irritating. Fights tend to last too long. So yeah, I think in terms of the style, it's kind of like Batman Arkham Knight meets The Witcher, which makes it sound amazing. It's not that good in reality.
So is the Technomancer worth its full price tag, or is this something you should rather wait to buy on a deal or second hand?
Depends entirely on what you like in terms of genre. I think if you're an RPG diehard, then there's a lot to like here. And I don't want to be too negative. There is a lot of content that's done right here. There's a lot of content in general. There's sort of 30 to 40 hours worth of stuff to play through. I mean, the major issue is that it's quite easy to feel very indifferent about all of it. You sort of just go through the motions because there's no real spark there. So as I sort of said in my review, I mean, this is a 6 out of 10 game, so it's definitely got redeeming qualities. It does look nice in parts. It's got some pretty cool boss fights as well, and the combat can be really rewarding. There are a lot of missions to complete, and there are a lot of side quests to undertake, so there's a lot of content there, so it'll keep you very busy. On the negative, the missions feel a bit flat. They kind of feel like you're going through the motions. And the biggest missed opportunity of all is the setting itself. I mean, if this was a game where you could actually go outside, explore like an open world, drive a vehicle around like you could in the first Mass Effect, I think the game would be exponentially better. I'm not sure whether the budget didn't allow them to do that, but you know, this is the kind of game that's crying out for a bit more of a bigger vision. I think there's a lot of potential there, and if they do another sequel and they get some more money to spend on it, then I think it could really be great. You know, my overriding feeling is that once you finish playing it after a couple of weeks, you're probably not really going to remember it that well. Guys, yeah, that was our review of the Technomancer. My name is Edward Love.
I'm Brian Smith.
And we've been talking about the highs and lows of this RPG, which has been made by Spiders and was released at the end of last month. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Did you agree with my thoughts on the game, or you're a big fan? Do you think I got it completely wrong? Give us a like or a thumbs down. It's cool either way, and thanks for watching.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Instagram and Google+. And check us out at bandwidthblog.com for more tech, gadget and gaming news.